What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the tower. So with this new version 27 teaser we got recently, I decided it's time to actually release an infinite video. So the original strategy was made by Mini Momo and Kara. They were the original two to actually use it. I don't know which one actually made it. I don't know if they made it together, but they haven't really shared much at all about it. So yeah, everyone else has pretty much had to figure it out. So everything I show in this video is not going to be like their strategy at all. I assume they use like a similar setup, but yeah, my version of the setup's got to be a lot different than a lot of other people's. So yeah, I'm just having it as a disclaimer that there's not only one way to do it. There's so many ways you can set up the strategy. So I'm going to first show you the setup, and then I'll kind of show the strategy and how it works. So starting off with cards. So the main idea for a lot of this setup is that we're going to be using EHP to set it up instead of damage. So we're going to take attack speed, health, and health regen. You can use range. It's not required. But if you need the range, then you can use it. I'll also do catch and slower. We can put it on enemy balance. It doesn't really change much if you don't have the mastery, but it is good if you have the mastery. Also use extra defense. And then fortress, if you have the mastery, that helps, but it doesn't really matter if you don't have the mastery. So I'll also put on extra orb and plasma cannon. Then we can put on everything in this row: wave skip, ensure sprint, landmine stun, recovery package chance. And then the epics is kind of where it gets interesting. So you can use death ray. You're not going to want energy net or super tower. If you do have the second wind blast at all labbed, you do not want to use that. And then we will use demon mode, energy shield, and wave accelerator. And then you don't want any of these last three. For the modules, there's really not that much that actually matters. Since we want as low damage as possible, I kind of de-leveled my cannon and my core. I also de-leveled my generator just for the extra coins. These are not needed at all. I mean, more bullets is going to help still, but it's not like super necessary. The main thing that you want is negative mass projector. I would say the only ones that you actually need are the orbs and orb speed, but shockwave size and shockwave frequency are super recommended as well. They make it so much easier to actually do the strategy. So yeah, I would say it's going to be super hard if you don't have those. Even I was barely able to make it work without them. So you can get the knockback ones, but like again, they're not like super necessary, similar to the cannon substats. But the cannon doesn't really matter either, like the cannon itself. I'm just using Astral Deliverance since I have all my substats on it already. I would say don't use death penalty though, because that can make it a lot harder. So anything but death penalty here. And then for the generator, the one you really want is just enemy attack level skip. Package chance is good if you have the package mastery, just so you can get extra shards. And then I also do have max recovery and recovery amount for the EHP. So those are also nice to have, but they're not necessary at all. For the module here, you want to either use Galaxy Compressor or Black Hole Digester. You could also use Singularity Harness, I guess, but there is the double damage, so you probably wouldn't want to use that. Definitely don't use Pulsar Harvester or Project Funding, though. I think Mini Momo actually used Project Funding, but I would say that's probably not ideal for this setup. And then lastly, the core. I don't think this one actually matters at all. Core itself, the substats do matter, but Harmony Conductor is going to help the most. So I kind of just rolled that to set this out. The only one you really need is Chrono Field Speed Reduction. If there's Ultimate Weapon Durations, the Battle Condition, you can also get the Chrono Field Duration if you need that. The other ones that will help is the Poison Swamp Cooldown and Poison Swamp Duration as well, just for the extra stuns. But yeah, there's not much else for modules, that's pretty much it. And the main thing you actually need for ultimate weapons is it's a decent level of Chrono Loop. So it kind of depends on the battle conditions, but I think with the easiest conditions, you can get it to work with like a level 7 or 8. Higher is always going to be better, of course, though. But yeah, you would just have to try it yourself if you do have a lower level. That's really the only thing you need. Having your Poison Swamp set up for stuns is really helpful as well, though. This is pretty important as well. If you do have this, you're definitely not going to need as much Chrono Loop. So yeah, it just kind of depends where your Chrono Loop is at, and then also your Poison Swamp for stunts. I'll move on to the workshop setup now. So this one's going to be pretty weird as well. For the basic setup, you just want to max attack speed here. Most of the time you can max range at the start if you don't really mind where your orbs are. Typically you just want to keep them at 60 meters each. And then I will also show you the labs quickly since I didn't really go over that. But my favorite labs to use, you do want to max shockwave size. Getting your shockwave size as high as possible pretty much. The max is 4.35, and this with the substat will get you there. And then for the range lab, I like to use 19. That kind of puts the range in a good spot for the shockwave. It pushes the enemies right to the edge of your Chrono Field range with this. So you want to leave these 4 at level 0, and then you want to unlock multi-shot, rapid fire, and bounce shot. And then you do not unlock Supercurrents or Rent, and then you can max all of these. So yeah, the attack section of your workshop is going to look like this. Moving on to the defense, there's really not that much here. You can max everything pretty much. The only thing you might want to leave at 0 is landmine damage, but it really doesn't matter that much. The landmines don't do that much damage. So yeah, you can pretty much just max everything here. And then for the utility upgrades, you can max these if you want. Do not upgrade your free upgrades though. You can if you do have the mastery, but it kind of just makes it harder. You have to use a bunch of free upgrade locks, so it's kind of not worth it most of the time. Then you can max these. You don't want to invest in enemy health level skip at all. Kind of allocate whatever you'd usually allocate into your attack skip. I'm trying to do 600 levels. So yeah, this is what the utility upgrades looks like. For the enhancements, you want to upgrade damage until you can unlock your rend armor. Just because you kind of have to upgrade something to unlock this stuff. And then at this point, you upgrade your rend armor until you can unlock the attack speed enhancement. I actually know what level mine's at. So yeah, once I get this to 1.64, I've unlocked the attack speed. And then since I have a lot of coins, I'm going to max this. If you don't have enough coins, you're not going to want to max like some of these things. And then yeah, the reason we upgrade the rend armor is because we don't actually have it unlocked, so it doesn't affect our damage at all. Coming over here, you want to allocate a pretty good amount into health regen, and then wall health, since we're going with the EHP. And then I'm also going to max orb size. Orb size is really important. I would say this is probably the most important stat. But don't put too much into it since you want to have some of these other stats. But yeah, moving on over here, I also just put 200 levels into this since I have the coins. Put about the same amount of coins into this as you did with these ones as well. And then from here, I kind of just put as many coins as I can into my enemy level skips. And then any extra coins, I guess you put into like health, wall health, health regen, stuff like that. But yeah, something like that. And yeah, that's the workshop setup. For your bots, you don't actually need any bots, but if you do have like bot presets, flame bots kind of make it a lot easier since we're doing the EHP setup, of course. I do have Thunderbot unlocked in this just if I want to use that at all, but I usually don't. So yeah, I'll kind of get into a run and show you what it looks like. I'm just going to do it on tier 13 since there's no conditions here. So in the actual run, you're going to want to turn off some ultimate weapons. Chain lightning, smart missiles. You can keep death wave on, but make sure to turn off death wave plus. This just helps for the death wave health. You do keep on chrono field and chrono field plus, of course. Inner landmines off. You can keep golden tower on. I'd also do a poison swamp on for the stun, but make sure to have poison swamp plus off. And then black hole and spotlight stuff off. So yeah, I'll just quickly show you how this works and I'll explain it. So if you're actually in a tournament, you might not want to use intro sprint at all. Maybe just use it to like wave 100. You just need to be able to survive the actual setup. So in the game, there's a cap of 20 elites on the screen at once. What you want to do for the strategy is lower your damage as much as you can. And then you want to get 20 scatters to spawn and you just juggle them the entire time so you can't get any more rays or vampires. Main thing is the rays, of course. They can't kill you at all then. You can never kill the scatters either as long as you set it up correctly. And then pretty much you just have orbs for bosses. And then you really can't actually die ever. Since yeah, there's not really anything actually threatening to kill you. So yeah, like I said, you might want to end it early. I'm going to let it fully play out here since this is just a regular tier. The damage is really low on the enemies and it will be faster just to show you the strategy. So as you can see here, these two vampires spawned. Sometimes it takes a while for them to die, but they eventually will. So the thing that kills the vampires is the garlic thorns, which is this lab right here. You don't actually need it though if you don't have it. It doesn't really matter at all then, since they won't be able to die anyway. If you do have that lab at all, the vampires will die to the garlic thorns, and the rays will just die by shooting you and dying to thorns with that. And then that just leaves scatters. So that's the last thing. So this setup's pretty much idle. I have the death ray killing all the enemies for the death wave health bonus if I need more health. I'm definitely not going to need that here in the regular tier, but it does help in tournaments. This can work under a lot of battle conditions, but kind of like I said, the boss conditions that make them harder are going to kind of depend on your setup, where your chrono field plus is at and where your poison swamp is at. The main conditions that make it hard are fast ultimate and protector's ultimate. You can counter them, but it's kind of hard. And you definitely need like a pretty good setup, I would say, for that. So yeah, at this point, we're just waiting for more elites to spawn. And I like keeping my orbs towards the center, just so the bosses don't get pushed by any other enemies past the orbs. I guess I can also show you what target priority I like to do, like after I'm actually set up. So I like to actually put all the regular enemies past the closest. The order kind of depends on what the conditions are, but I like to do ranged first, and then maybe like faster basic. But that actually does help make sure you don't take any extra damage from the regular enemies. Since you're already going to be shooting like bosses and elites anyway, they're not going to be like too much of a problem. Just making sure your tower is going to shoot every single regular enemy that gets in your range is going to be helpful. And if you want during this part, you can put your orbs out as well, kind of to help with the death wave health, but it's a little late. There's too many bosses on screen for me. So yeah, as you can see, the rays are shooting my wall, and they're dying to thorns slowly. If there's the thorns battle condition, that kind of makes it hard as well. You might just have to end your intro sprint a little bit earlier there. But yeah, you might just need more EHP as well. And as you can see, I have 2 scatters here. As long as if you lowered your damage enough, they won't actually ever die. They would eventually, but not for a reasonable run at all. The main thing that would actually kill them is the Poison Swamp, since the Poison Swamp has a base building mechanic without the Poison Swamp Plus. So the damage does slowly build over time. I don't think it's going to be a problem at all for most people. And yeah, as you can see, I'm slowly getting more scatters. And all the other elites are kind of shifting out. They're dying to both the thorns, and I'm just slowly getting more scatters. So as you can see, I'm slowly getting there. You will notice that you might get stuck with like a few vampires. They'll kind of hang around for a while, but they will eventually die. The only time it can be a problem if they like stick around for a while is if the enemy mass starts increasing before they actually die. Since the enemies that are spawned actually keep the mass of when they spawned, it doesn't retroactively increase. In tournaments, I've noticed that mass starts increasing at wave 3000, which is actually pretty long, so that's usually not a problem. But yeah, that's kind of what makes the strategy work, that the enemies spawn with a certain mass instead of just increasing the mass of all enemies. Since you can't actually knock the scatters back when they have super high mass, but you can knock them back with their base mass, which is 200. So yeah, I mean, that's pretty much it for the build. It's really simple. It's a super simple concept. If you need the extra slow on the elites, which you might need, you can just quickly put the orbs up here, unless you already are using them up kind of at this area. But yeah, I think a lot of the time I don't need it. Since I have a high Chrono Field Plus. Since I kind of have them set up a lot closer for my method, you don't really get that unless you go out of your way to give them the slow effect. But yeah, something else you can also do is kind of hoard the regular enemies as well. You can take off Death Ray and then have your orbs at this spot, and you're never actually going to get new enemies to spawn as long as you don't kill the ones that are already there. It can help like later when the mass gets really high for the regular enemies. You don't have to like use a ton of extra bullets to knock them back. They already get knocked back pretty far just with the base mass. So that's something that also helps a lot. I think using that shrink makes a lot of battle conditions a lot easier. Just make sure the enemies all have a low mass. And then the target priority also helps with that. But yeah, at this point I have 4 vampires left. They will slowly disappear over time and turn into scatters. So yeah, that's pretty much the whole setup. I don't think there's much more to it. So at this point, let's just say I have all my scatters. To fully set up, you can turn off Flamebot and then also turn off Death Wave. And yeah, that's really all you need to do to fully transition after that. You're not going to need EHP at all anymore, or damage. And you just knock the scatters back infinitely and kill the bosses with the orbs. But yeah, as you can see, the scatters actually do have bounce priority, since elites and bosses have priority over other enemies for bounce shot. I think bosses have first priority, and then it's the elites. So the regular enemies aren't actually getting knocked back that much, since there's a lot of elites on the screen. And yeah, the Shockwave does an amazing job of keeping them back. They don't actually have super high speed yet, but even when they are at max speed, it does a really good job. But yeah, like I said, the Shockwave substats are really important. They make it so much easier. I can't really explain what to do to adjust for like every battle condition. There's too many cases, and it's going to depend on your tower. There's definitely a lot more things you can do than this to like optimize the build. But yeah, like I said, this is pretty much the basic build, and this will work during like the easiest battle conditions, just depending on your setup. And the one battle condition that does kill the strategy is the knockback resistance, since you can't actually knock the scatters back. It kind of makes the higher tiers not as viable as well, since they also have the knockback resistance. So yeah, that's kind of why this is like a tournament only type thing. It can work in like some of the tiers, but I would say it's not really worth it. So yeah, if you have any other questions about this strategy, you can ask in the comments. I'll try to get back to you. And yeah, that's pretty much it. See ya.